welcome to another edition of E.W. Jackson for America. Great to be with you again today. And wow, there's something to celebrate this morning. Cori Bush, this crazy, bizarre, socialist, communist, racist woman out in St. Louis, was defeated. She was unseated in the primary. Now, of course, another Democrat apparently takes her place, but there's an indication that the person who's taking her place is, shall we say, less radical, which is hard to find among Democrats these days, but she is gone. Defeated 51,197 votes of 45% to Wesley Bell's 57,062 votes. So it was a close election, but he got 51%. She got 45.8%. So percentage-wise, I mean, in terms of number of votes, well, actually, that's not too bad, actually. 6,000 votes. So that's a pretty good margin for a congressional district. And so she's gone. Thank you, Jesus. Presumably, one less insane voice in the United States House of Representatives. Presumably, one less insane voice. There are enough of them as there are. And it looks like the Democrats are about to try to add an even more insane voice to to our federal governmental apparatus in this guy, Tim Walz. It is Walz, not Waltz. Because he is, I mean, this guy, the more we learn about him, the worse it gets. I mean, he is really, really bad news. But Cori Bush is gone. So we'll see who this guy is that beat her. I haven't even seen any pictures of him. I haven't done a lot of research about it, but I'm just rejoicing in the fact that he's gone, okay? So the 4 horsewomen of the apocalypse have got, or however many horsewomen of the apocalypse there are now. But Bowman is gone from New York, and now Cori Bush is gone. These weirdo leftist socialists. And by the way, which is really interesting because they really have the gravitational pull of the Democrat Party right now. Because the ticket that is presented to us is about as radical left as it gets. And of course, the squad is elated about this ticket, particularly about the choice of Tim Walz, who is, I don't think he hasn't come out and said, I'm a socialist, but for all practical purposes, he believes in socialism. He is made clear. He said, well, one person's socialism and another person's neighborliness. So he considers socialism to be just being neighborly, which is, that's what he says. I mean, again, he can't possibly be that dumb. I mean, he knows better. I think the man is more ideologically sophisticated than that, and he knows exactly what he's trying to accomplish. But in the meantime, one bites the dust, and we are glad about that. Defeated the right way, which is at the ballot box. Gone. Now again, this is we can't do too much celebrating because a Democrat is replacing her, and I'm assuming I've got to do some research on that district too, because I don't know whether that district is majority black. I assume it is, and I don't know who this guy Bell is. I'm surprised that they don't have a picture of him in this article I'm reading about her defeat. I'm surprised that a great big old picture of Wesley Bell is not put up to show who he is. In fact, you know what? Let me see who this guy is. A real television off the cuff. Wesley Bell. Okay, so I guess he's been a prosecutor. Okay, yeah. All right. He's a black, he's a black guy, former prosecuting attorney in St. Louis County. And his website says he's fighting to strengthen our economy, lower health insurance, prescription drugs, stand up for seniors, and protect our planet. He's wearing some kind of curls, folks. I don't know what that means, but you know, he's got the little curly Q hair. Not saying anything. Not saying anything, folks. I'm just saying he does have the curly Q hair. You know? Make of that what you will. In fact, here's a picture of the guy. So that's Wesley Bell. So it's obviously predominantly black district. And he's a former prosecutor, so I guess we'll see. I guess we'll see. Meet Wesley Bell doesn't tell you much about him. Wow. It says meet Wesley Bell has worked to find solutions to big problems. Blah, 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 blah. His childhood instilled a deep appreciation for public service. Doesn't say anything about him being married. Doesn't say anything about him having a family. I'm not saying he doesn't. And so, folks, I'm not trying to be smart here, but it just, you know, the hairdo to me says a lot. But the fact that he ran against Cori Bush says something, right? I mean, he apparently wasn't happy with her, so he got rid of her. So that's undoubtedly a safe Democrat district. I don't even know whether there is a Republican opponent, but yeah, it doesn't say anything more about his personal life, about whether he's married or what. I'm just saying, so our celebration's got to be a little bit muted because Cori Bush is gone, but maybe they'll have a more reasonable person. Say a pro-Israel group spent $8.5 million to oust her. So I don't know whether that means Wesley Bell is pro-Israel. That would say something for him, wouldn't it? Right? That would say something for him. I'm just curious. Forgive me for musing here with you watching me muse and watching me sort of ruminate. But yeah, you know what? Nothing about his personal life that I see. Nothing. Yeah, nothing. And that to me is often an indication that there is something to hide. So we'll see. But if the man is homosexual, I'm not saying he is, so please, folks, bear with me here. I'm not saying he is, but I'm saying if he were, that's a thing of pride among Democrats. So I don't know why he would hide it, but so absolutely nothing whatsoever about his private life, which tells me that at the very least he's probably single. Okay, at the very least he's probably single, because it says nothing at all about his private life. Just all the stuff is about just a couple sentences about his early life, and then it goes into his career, and that's it. So that's interesting. That's very interesting. Okay. All right. Well, enough on that. Cori Bush is gone. We'll see what this guy Wesley Bell brings. We'll see how crazy he is. But sounds to me like he does not fit in the mold of a Cori Bush, or he would not have run against her. And so we'll let that speak for itself for now, and we'll see where it goes. But let's get back to Tim Walz. First of all, Nancy Pelosi has said, you know, this just goes to show what liars these people are. But she said he is right down the middle. Oh, he's a moderate. Yeah, Tim Walz is a moderate. Says he's wonderful, and he's had many good choices among the 6, and certainly among the 2. Oh, she's had, okay. But she said, I'm a big fan of Governor Shapiro. But Tim Walz I know very well. He served in the House. To characterize him as left is so unreal. He's right down the middle. Right down the middle. The guy passed a law in Minnesota that allows abortion at any time, at any stage, without any restrictions. In other words, folks, in Minnesota, and I am not exaggerating, you check it out for yourself, in Minnesota, you can literally kill an unborn baby up until the moment of birth, and it is perfectly legal. The mother can be ready to give birth, but if you kill the baby before she gives birth, it is perfectly legal. That's Minnesota. That's Tim Walz. Right down the middle. He passed a law in Minnesota that says children, minor children, now I don't know whether there's any lower limit to this. I would assume that there is, although with these people, you can't assume anything really. Common sense would suggest that, but then when do they use common sense? But children may be surgically mutilated and injected with hormones for the purpose of so-called transitioning them, which you can't do. It's impossible. You can't go from being a man to being a woman. You can't go from being a woman to being a man. It is physiologically, biologically impossible. It cannot be done. And but this idiot in the Olympics to beat up this woman to say, well, I'm a woman. No, you're a fool. You're a man who's a fool. But in Tim Walz, Minnesota, you can mutilate a child, inject a child with hormones against the parent's wishes. You do not need parental permission. The state can do it on its own. So now you got the state basically mutilating children and basically turning over the broken, messed up kid to some kind of foster care or wherever, and maybe giving them back to their parents all messed up because the state decided it knew what's best for these children, not their parents. That's Tim Walz. Tim Walz is the guy who says about the border, you know, all these, yeah, because you probably haven't heard this one, because I haven't heard this being given a lot of attention. So let me be the one to tell you, because this is what they have in mind for America. He started in something in Minnesota called the Office of New Americans. And it is designed to help illegal aliens get all of the benefits and all of the things that they need in order to live their new life as Americans. He calls it the Office of New Americans. And they get driver's licenses, welfare benefits, health care, free, if I'm not mistaken, they provide free education. I'm talking about higher education. In other words, if you are illegal, and I love using that word because the left hates it. They hate it because it's the truth. No person is illegal. Yeah, well, if you're in a store stealing stuff taking stuff that doesn't belong to you, you're stealing it, you're illegal. These people with these word games. But no. They're not illegal aliens. They're not invaders. They're new Americans. This is a whole new, before it was just undocumented. Now, with him, we're going to be hearing all over the country because they're going to open up an office. Obviously, they'll establish an office in the federal government, the Office of New Americans, to give every possible benefit to any illegal alien they can who wants it. It's, folks, it's, you know, here I am. I'm struggling for words because look, you and I have asked the question repeatedly. Well, how much farther can they go? Well, they're going to just keep going. They're not going to stop. They're not going to rest until America is a socialist state. Let's just make that clear. They're not going to stop. They're not going to rest until America is a socialist state. That's what they want. And they're going to use these people to get there. I heard one commentator say, I don't know who it was, because she's one of these people who shows up as a guest from time to time, but she's not a household name or anything. But she said their play is getting absolute control over the American political system. That's what they're going for. And I said, she's the first person I've heard, other than me, and maybe a handful of others, but not on Fox, say that. First person on Fox I've heard say that. And it's the absolute truth. That's what they're after. And they'll use these people, these illegal aliens, these invaders, they will use them as their leverage to establish hegemony over our national electoral system and maybe many state systems as well. The Office of New Americans. Thank you, Tim Waltz. We hadn't even thought about that. And I'm sure you can verify this yourself, but I'm pretty sure one of the benefits that he provides for people, that I'm sure I read, it's not in this particular article, is, again, free education. You know, how far will they go? There's no limit. There is no limit to how far they will go. They will go as far as they need to go in order to get what they want. Pro-life activists and leaders are dubbing this the most pro-abortion ticket that the Democrats have ever put forward. And you know, to be more pro-abortion than Barack Obama, that's doing something. But that is exactly what this is. Because again, I mean, Barack Obama was very, very, very pro-abortion. So I don't even know whether that's true. Now that I think about it, I don't even know whether that's true. But I'll tell you one thing. They seem to be, at the very least, as pro unborn baby killing as Barack Obama and Joe Biden were as an administration. Because prior to that, what was Clinton's dictum? Safe, legal, and rare. Right? Now, of course, they all supported late-term killing of unborn babies. Not that it really makes any difference, because either way you're killing an unborn baby, but it's just that it's so much starker then, because now you've got a body to deal with. But they had no problem with that. So I don't know. And by the way, can I just add this footnote? I am just thoroughly disgusted. And this is one of the reasons why I have absolutely no use for the Democrat Party whatsoever. I believe that the Democrat Party is irredeemable. I say the people are irredeemable, because I don't believe people are ever irredeemable. But the party itself is irredeemable. It needs to be gotten rid of and replaced with something else that comes back closer to reality. But Bob Casey, do you remember this? He's now senator from Pennsylvania, isn't he? Yeah, I think he's senator from Pennsylvania now. Yeah. But you may or may not remember this. When Barack Obama was trying to get the infamous Obamacare passed, there were some pro-life U.S. senators, and Bob Casey was one of them, that said they would only vote for it if they were guaranteed that it would not support abortion. And, of course, Barack Obama promised them that and then proceeded, of course, to immediately completely ignore that. And that's a dead letter now. But Bob Casey claimed to be so pro-life, lied to, misled, deceived, what have you. He's still a very active Democrat, and he's supporting this ticket, this radical pro-abortion ticket 100%, which tells me something. There are no pro-life Democrats. There are none. They've all sold themselves out to the devil. And so if you're looking for a pro-life Democrat, get yourself a magnifying glass and a pair of tweezers and a microscope, because that's what it's going to take for you to find one. And after an exhaustive search at the microscopic level, you still won't find one. They're gone. The party, look, the party has dispensed with God. Therefore, the party has dispensed with all principles that emanate from an acknowledgement of God. Why are we pro-life? I can't speak for every one of you, but I can tell you, I'm probably speaking for most of you when I say this, if not all of you. We are pro-life because we believe that God is the creator of life. By the way, our founding fathers believed that too. And therefore it is sacred, and that we as human beings do not have a right to interfere with what God has created and to kill that which God has created. We also believe that God has a plan for every single human being that ever lives. Every one of those babies conceived, God has a plan for that child. And how dare we short-circuit that plan by killing that child before it can realize that plan and fulfill the plans and purposes that God had for that child before the foundation of the world. I mean, it all comes back to acknowledgement of and respect for God. Now, there's some other really practical philosophical considerations, which is one of which is it seems ultimately hypocritical for me as a living person who has been allowed to fulfill my life and to pursue my dreams, to then deny that to someone else. It just seems to me to be ultimately hypocritical. I mean, they're the penultimate of hypocrisy. And I've said this before, this may seem a little bit harsh or out there, but I put it this way. If you really believe that the life of that child is meaningless, has no purpose, has no value, has no right to live whatsoever that should be recognized by anyone, then you really ought to kill yourself. I mean, because you are a product of what that child is right now. So then you're saying you didn't have a right to live, you didn't have a right to exist, you didn't have a right to be protected. So if you really believe that, then your whole life is meaningless. It would have been just as well to snuff you out in the womb. So do it now. Now, I know that's a bit absurd, but you get the logic of what I'm saying? You can't, on the one hand, say, well, that child's life is meaningless. That child's life doesn't matter. That child's life can be snuffed out, but my life is valuable. When did your life become valuable? Oh, my life became valuable the moment I emerged from my mother's womb. Oh, really? That's the standard. But it would have been okay to puncture your skull at 8 months, 2 weeks. That would have been okay. So on a philosophical level, it is untenable if we're going to be honest with ourselves. To say it's not life is untenable, because clearly it's life. It has movement, it has multiplication, it has biological and chemical processes that are going on in that human being's development, moving toward full maturity, which is a very, very, very long process, but it begins at the moment of conception. You know, a child just emerging from the womb has no self-consciousness, right? I mean, that child is not aware of its existence. It takes time for that to grow and develop. I mean, we've even heard the data that the brain of a teenager, people even in their early 20s, has not fully grasped reality and the implications of their actions, which is why we make people wait in order to engage in certain behaviors, because we believe that they're not at a point where they can make. So we say a minor cannot give informed consent because we don't believe that their brains at that point are capable of weighing the consequences of their actions. But somehow there's this artificial cutoff. And so at 9 months, when you emerge from the womb, that's the magic moment. Well, why is it the magic moment self-consciousness? When does that happen? Oh, I don't know. A year and a half, 2 years, maybe. So it's okay to kill it up until that time then. I mean, yeah, the logic of killing unborn babies is non-existent, untenable, unsupportable. But let's face it, these people don't do it because of logic. They do it because of lust. They want what they want, and they want to do what they want to do, and they don't want responsibility getting in their way. That's all this boils down to. You and I know, and they know too, the number of women impregnated because of incest or rape is infinitesimal. Infinitesimal. That's not what abortion is protecting. Are you kidding me? It's post-pregnancy contraception. That's what it is. I didn't want to get pregnant. I don't want to be pregnant. Kill the unborn baby. Let me move on. That's what it is. Overwhelmingly, that's what it is. And if abortions were actually restricted, if we actually said, and I don't agree with this, but let's say, just for the sake of discussion and argument, somebody said, well, you know what? All abortions are outlawed, except in the case of rape and incest. For all practical purposes, there would be no more killings of unborn babies because there's so few people, women, who are pregnant as a result of rape or incest that abortions will almost be wiped off the map. They'd be wiped out. And these leftists know that. They use that really as a tool of manipulation. So you're very radical. As if, there are just millions of women who've been raped and millions of women who are victims of incest, and they're all pregnant, and we can't make them have these babies. And by the way, I am not in any way minimizing the horror of rape or the absolute depravity of incest. I'm not minimizing that at all. I'm simply saying the unborn baby is innocent of any of that. Why does the unborn baby have to lose his or her life because somebody else did something wrong? Again, the logic of it is untenable. It just doesn't wash. It doesn't hold water. You can't make it work because it's not about logic. It's about selfishness and personal desires and lusts and a perverse view of freedom, because you know the Democrats keep you listen. Just like when you hear the word democracy coming out of the mouth of the Democrats, what they really mean is the tyranny to impose upon you whatever they want once they can get enough votes to impose it. And they don't want the Supreme Court limiting their ability, the ability of government to do whatever it wants to do for you, with you, to you. They say for you, but I say with you and to you, because basically you're just a pawn. They don't. So that when they say democracy, that's what they really mean. That's why they want to pack the Supreme Court. That's why they want to do away with the filibuster. Because they said, we can get one vote more than half, we can impose on people whatever we want. And the Supreme Court has no ability to check us because we packed it with people who are going to rubber stamp whatever we do. We're home free. Then you have a democratic dictatorship. That's what you've got. And that's what they really want. They don't want individual liberty, because individual liberty is really the mark of a constitutional republic. Individual liberty, not collectivist liberty, individual liberty. I have a right to be a part of the collective or not be. I have a right to agree with the collective or not agree. I have a right to go my own way, do my own thing. If I'm not harming anyone else, I've got the right to chart the course of my own life. And the government doesn't have any ability to telling me, any right to tell me what to think, what to say, what to believe, what God to worship. None of that. But that's not what they want. They want to tell you and me as Christians, you better not bring up this God that condemns homosexuality. Don't do it. You better not bring up this God that condemns the killing of unborn babies. Don't do it. Because we're going to shut you down. We're going to silence you. That's what closing up the churches during COVID was all about. It was not about safety and security. It was about an opportunity to finally hurt these institutions that they think are so much in their way. The bar can remain open because it's essential, but the church needs to close. Now again, you tell me the logic in that. People congregate in bars. People violate, they start drinking liquor. They violate all kinds of rules of social distancing. Who cares? But no. The bars have to remain open. But the churches, now those are some truly dangerous places, and they're not essential anyway. Shut their doors. And if they dare to try to meet, punish them. Where was it? I think it was Michigan, where they wanted to issue a $500 fine to any person who attended church. And they were going to take your license down in the parking lot and then send you the fine later. We'll teach you to go to church. See, that's, folks, that's who these people are. I remember the former governor, that reprobate Ralph Northam, the guy who ran against me for lieutenant governor back in 2011 and wouldn't shake my hand after a television debate. Remember him saying, "Well, if the baby is born alive, then we'll figure out what that's a decision that we have to make then later." In other words, let it live, let it die. That's just a minor decision we'll make after we see if it's alive. Okay, what do we want to do with it? Throw it in the trash. Yeah, Dr. Ralph Northam. Not an iota of respect for life, because he has not an iota of respect for God. And that's where they are. Oh, here's another little thing. I'm glad I'm able to get to this today that you need to be aware of. And they said this in their first outing together, that they plan to ban assault weapons, particularly the AR-15. But again, what is an assault weapon, right? I mean, is a semi-automatic pistol an assault weapon? Because it holds, depending on what you've got. I've got a Beretta 92, and I think it holds 17 or 18 rounds. I forget, but you know. So I think it holds 17 rounds in one of the chambers. I think it's a total of 18 rounds. I think that's the biggest magazine pistol that I've got. That you know, it's a great big old formerly used in the military. In fact, well, actually, I think I was trained in the Marine Corps on I forget what kind of 45, but I was trained with a 45 in the military. But at any rate, is that an assault weapon? Does that need to be banned? And so once they're banned, does that make all of us who own AR-15s outlaws, criminals? Do we have to go report ourselves or go turn the AR-15s in? These folks, these people talking about democracy, they don't have in mind what they want to create an image for you of protecting your freedom. What they really want to do is take that freedom away. By the way, I'm sure you know this. They don't seem to or won't admit it. Criminals won't be lining up to turn in their so-called assault weapons. So yeah, disarm the American people, disarm the law-abiding citizen, leave the criminals with guns galore, and the rest of us can just depend upon the government to protect us. So here again, that's where Walz and Kamala want to take the country. So your Second Amendment rights out the window. Your First Amendment rights out the window, because much of what you and I have to say is hate speech from their perspective. You know, quoting the Bible is hate speech. Let's see. What else have we got? Well, I guess the last thing I think I'll end on, well, I got two other things I think I'll mention. But the first one is this anti-Jewish, anti-Semitic sentiment that we've now seen exposed in the Democrat Party. Well, I've been saying this for years, folks. In fact, I wrote an article, oh my goodness, now, 2008, I wrote an article, wow, how about that, 2008? 15 years ago now, 16 years ago, about Barack Obama's anti-Semitism. Because, look, his pastor, Jeremiah Wright, was a rabid anti-Semite. Jeremiah Wright's best friend was Louis Farrakhan, a rabid anti-Semite. And Barack Obama was part of that milieu. He was part of that whole cabal. And I said, Barack Obama's an anti-Semite. But he's a smart guy who knows that he can't be perceived that way, and he can't let anybody know he thinks that way, because if he does, he will end up losing a lot of his Jewish support. And he just can't afford that. Of course, some of them, sadly, are dumb enough to support Democrats no matter how anti-Semitic and how anti-Jewish they are, anti-Israel they are. Just like Christians are willing to support the Democrat Party no matter how anti-Christian it is. But take note. Take note. Both Biden and Obama treated Netanyahu like he had the plague, insulted the man, essentially disdained and diminished the importance of our alliance in the Middle East. Essentially. They withheld munitions that the Israelis said that they needed while we're sending billions of dollars to Ukraine to fight a war that they're never going to win against Putin and Russia. I mean, right? They're never going to win that. All we're going to do is spend billions and billions. And every time I hear, folks, Forgive me for this expression, but you'll get the point. I'll clean it up. But every time I hear one of these Democrats talk about sending money to Ukraine to help protect their sovereignty, I want to slap somebody. Now, I don't really want to, I'm being metaphorical. Because you don't want to protect our borders. You don't seem to care who comes across our borders. You've allowed a virtual invasion of our borders, but you want us to spend tens of billions of dollars protecting the borders of a country in Eastern Europe. Now, what sense does that make? Well, none from a logical point of view, none from the point of view of the interests of the American people and our own country, but lots if what you're really doing is playing the globalist power game. If what you're really aiming for is a World Economic Forum type world, and you see this as part of your effort to do that, and maybe you feel like Putin is not cooperating, and this is how you kind of check him, I guess. I'm not even sure it makes sense doing it for that reason. But for whatever reason you might be doing it, to be doing that and to be ignoring the sovereignty, the safety, the security of the American borders, and therefore the safety and security of the American people, you need to be slapped. Again, metaphorically speaking. I'm not going to slap anybody, folks, but you get my point. I mean, it's utterly ridiculous. But that's who we have. That's where we are. And so this anti-Semitism that is becoming rampant in the Democrat Party is, again, that is an existential threat to the future of our country, because I really don't believe that any country can have the success we've had and the prosperity we've had and be blessed as we have and become the enemy of Israel. And the Democrat Party would really rather us be the enemy of Israel. Let me just say for the record here, I denounce the two-state solution. I'm not running for president, but this would be my policy if I were. I denounce the two-state solution. I denounce land for peace deals. I believe that Israel ought to be supported in occupying every piece of land the biblical grant gives them, and that goes all the way from the river Euphrates to the Mediterranean Sea. So as far as I'm concerned, part of Israel, part of Syria is Israel's, all of Lebanon is Israel's, the West Bank is Israel's, Gaza is Israel's, the Golan Heights are Israel's. All of that is Israel's territory. They're not occupying as people who don't have a right to be there. They are the rightful owners of that land by a grant from Almighty God. And if you don't like that, go argue with the Bible. If they don't like it, go argue with the Bible. Argue with God. Don't argue with me. I didn't make the land grant. God did, but I'm agreeing with it. And I'll agree with it until I breathe my final breath on this earth. I will stand with Israel as long as I have breath to stand. In the name of Jesus, Yeshua Yamashiach, Jesus, the Jewish Messiah. Now, they can put that in their pipe and smoke it. Okay, so I wanted to get that out of the way. So look, and that's why Josh Shapiro wasn't chosen, because the Democrat Party's gotten to a point where they don't like Jewish people and they don't like Israel, and that was not going to be acceptable to the horsewomen of the apocalypse. Well, they're rejoicing now they got Tim Walz. So that was one thing. Let me see. What was the other thing? Oh, yeah. Well, yeah, hating Israel has become a spectator sport. I guess the other thing I would say is I am amazed, again, that the way the press is handling this whole thing. because they're treating this guy. Oh, you know what? Actually, no, let me stop because I got to go. But let me get this out. This is the thing I wanted to mention. Not further mention about Walls. I'll come back to that because the press is treating him like, again, you know, what? I mean, even Brett Baer. Oh, he fishes. He does ice fishing. Oh, please. The man's a communist. Give me a break. I'm so disappointed in that. Yeah. The Biden-Harris economy has 1.2 million fewer Americans working and 3.9 million more illegal aliens and foreign-born people working in America today. So I wanted to get that out there. More opportunity for illegal aliens, less opportunity for the American people. That's their formula. Because, see, they've already got the Americans. They figure, well, who cares? They need these illegal aliens in order to secure the power that they're looking for. And so they're doing everything they can to make sure that they get rewarded. And Tim Walz is the poster boy for it. Like I say, I mean, man, he's got, what is it? The Office for New Americans. The Office for New Americans. That tells you all you need to know, doesn't it? That's what they want for our country. And oh my goodness gracious, folks. We can't let them have it. We cannot give them the keys to the White House. Or, as far as I'm concerned, or any other house in the United States of America. Certainly not to your house or my house. And they do want the keys to your house and my house too. To basically dictate our lives for us. All right, that's going to do it for today. God bless each and every one of you. Look, you know what we've got to do. We've got a big election coming up. Again, go to standamericapac.us. Help us to help Donald Trump win. Standamericapac.us. Standamericapac.us. The address to send checks to is there as well if you don't want to give online. And if you want to give on the nonprofit side, it's standamerica.us. In the meantime, folks, stand up, step up, speak up, refuse to back up. Because we cannot be defeated if we will not quit. Because we are on God's side. God bless everybody.